Jim. How you doing over there? You can turn around and I'm going to come over on that side, but I'm going to call the meeting to order. Okay. Rhonda, you want to do roll call?
Butler,
Here.
Circus,
Here.
Madsen,
Here.
Shank,
Here.
good.
Here.
Okay. Okay, we'll let you turn around.
No.
Would you like to stand?
She's adjusting it in the back. Testing 1, 2.
Can you hear me back there? No.
Wait a minute. Yes.
It says on.
Green lights
No,
on.
you're coming through those, but not back there.
Okay, how's that? Much, much better. Well, it's clearly an honor. It is. And I promise not to cry. But anytime I do a proclamation, it's done with a great deal of love and respect for the individual I'm giving this to. You've made a real difference here in Snowmass Village, hasn't he?
Yes,
Yes.
And one thing about Jim, he's always smiling. He puts up with our complaints. I never complain. And even in the busiest of times, particularly during the holiday season this year when you were all very short-staffed, Jim always had a smile, didn't he? He was always there. So with that, I'm going to read a proclamation expressing the town of Snowmass Village's appreciation to Jim Owens for his dedication and service to the residents of the town of Snowmass Village. Whereas Jim Owens started working for the United States Post Office in the city of Aspen, Colorado in December of 1977. And whereas Jim transferred from the Aspen Post Office to the Snowmass Village Post Office in November of 1987. And whereas Jim has seen the population of Snowmass Village increase from under 1,000 people to nearly 3,000 people in his years of tenure. And whereas Jim's wisdom, experience, service, and years of dedication to the residents of Snowmass Village for the last 31 years will be greatly missed. And whereas we all gratefully thank Jim for his knowledge, his kindness, his devotion to serving the residents and businesses in Snowmass Village. And whereas neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor gloom of night kept Jim from smiling and the swift completion of his appointed rounds. Now therefore be it proclaimed by Marky Butler, Mayor of Snowmass Village, on behalf of all the citizens of Snowmass Village, that Jim Owens shall forever be respected and held in the highest appreciation by all of the citizens of Snowmass Village for his 31 years of dedication and devotion to our community. This is the 7th of January. I'm very honored and proud to read this, and I just noticed it says 2018 versus 2019.
It was 2018 when I typed it.
It was. There it is.
All I want to say is thank you very much. It's been wonderful 31 years.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Come on, guys. Come on,
I
Council.
just want to know if I have any pink slips in my bottle.
Oh, you mean, you still have a job, though. Alyssa, did you say anything to Jim? Okay, we have a small celebration that is being sponsored by the Rotary Club, Snowmass Village, and also Barb at Sundance for You. We're going to take a recess from council chambers for about 10 minutes, and then we will reconvene, and you all party, and we'll do the work of the town. So I'm going to call the meeting back to order.
You're on.
I'm going to call the meeting back to order. Okay, Michael.
So be ready.
Are you boys ready? Boys and girls ready?
Yes, we're ready. We're ready. We're ready.
Well, thank you all. It was a great crowd. Wonderful.
That was very nice.
It was wonderful. Okay. We're going to move on. The next item of a business is the update from Snowmass Discovery Center. Michael Miracle's here. Michael, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you are fine. Are you official now and doing what you're doing?
I
No.
guess as official as an executive on
Michael,
loan
can you-
can be official, because that sounds only
Thank you.
semi-official.
Okay, so kind of is our executive director right now for the Snowmass
So,
Discovery.
that might be overstating. Executive on loan.
Okay, so you're the great person that's working hard to make it happen.
Sorry, I'm.
You're fine.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so you want to tell us what's going on?
Okay, so well, I was just trying to figure out with Clint how long ago it was that I came and sat before you as in my newly appointed role as executive on loan, which was some weeks ago. Feels like maybe 6, 7, 8 weeks ago, and I'm here to report that we're making some progress.
Good.
And so I want to talk to you about what's happened since I saw you last, and give you kind of just a high level sense of some of the ideas that have been proposed. So, and I want to just ask a favor first, which is, I know that there is going to be a question in each of your minds, who's going to pay for all this? Is there money for all this stuff? And it's a totally fair question, but I'd like for us to not have that be the focus, have that not be the focus of our thoughts as we're talking through some of this, because this is about the progress that we've made, and we'll answer that question at some point in the not too distant future. So the slide that's up on the screen here now is the first page of a 37-page exhibit concept proposal from Carolyn Harris Consulting and Studio Tectonic Design. So that's kind of the big piece of progress that we've got is an actual exhibit concept document that the Snowmass Discovery Board has responded to. There was a presentation that Carolyn and Seth gave to us. We sat here in your small conference room with the guys from East West, some Aspen Skiing Company people, Clint, Rose, Bob Purvis was here, Snowmass Discovery Board. And then we gave them some feedback, and they've refined it a bit more. It's still not ready for us to kind of release it into the bigger public. It just needs to be refined a bit more. But I wanted to just flash some of the pages at you so you could see what sort of progress has been made. And first, just to give you a sense of who Carolyn and Seth are, these are real museum designing professionals. They've done Carolyn did the Dallas Holocaust Museum, the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta, the National Center for Civil and Human Rights in Atlanta, the NASCAR Hall of Fame in Charlotte, among others, and Studio Tectonic has done the NASDAQ market site in Times Square in New York City, the Sierra Leone Peace Museum, and the Niagara Falls Underground Railroad Heritage Center, which are all really impressive museums, that whole list, and they've got a bunch more. If you go to either of their websites, you can see some of what they've done. And one of the great things that has come out of working with them on this is that they've reminded me, and I think everyone who's been working with them, what an incredible thing this Snowmass, the Discovery was. I think that's, like, as this has been sort of, stalled out and sort of like stuck in conversation about, how big of a space, does it get the space or not, who's going to pay for it, let's do a feasibility study. We've lost a little bit of sight of just what an extraordinary thing it was. And so when they came into this and interviewed Ian Miller and talked to other folks at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science and did all their discovery, talking to Rose and with people in the town, they came back and said, you have a real story here. It's remarkable. There's a ton of stuff here, and you can totally do a really killer museum with the assets you have. So that was refreshing, just to have some real wind blown back in our sails from real museum designing professionals. So this is their kind of their big idea, and again, this is, could be further wordsmith, but as they did their discovery, this is kind of their framing prism that they came up with, which their further framing ideas come out of. And I'll just read it. Through amazing effort and collaboration, perfect site conditions and circumstances right here in Snowmass, scientists from all over the world, joined by many Coloradans, unearthed an unexpected and unparalleled discovery that tells us as much about our changing environment today as about earlier life in the dynamic Ice Age period that, in geological time, occurred in our very recent past. Through impressive artifacts and engaging media interactives, visitors will be wowed by this captivating story, which is deeply relevant to our impassioned community and the world. And when they gave us the bigger presentation, they explained that this is an important, just kind of mission statement of sorts for the museum that they then test ideas against. And it helps them say yes to things and say no to things. So from that, they came up with this sort of the big picture things. And again, I don't want us to kind of get overly focused on the details that are on the screen right now. I'm showing them to you. This is page 6 of their presentation, just so you can see the kind of thinking that they were doing, and sort of the experiential ideas they were looking for. So this is a kind of an exhibit theme flow. It doesn't specifically relate to any space so much as it does, here's how you can tell the story that you have. And the 3 big themes are the dig itself, which they think there is a tremendous amount of material for, the Pleistocene, which is just fancy way to say the Ice Age, to educate people around what was discovered as it relates to science, and then climate is a smaller piece, but one that's going to pop up throughout. And then all of those circles that you see within the bigger circles are some specific exhibit ideas, and I'm going to flash a couple of those at you just so you can get a sense for the types of things that are being discussed. I think one key line that I'd like to point to here is in that exhibit threads. It says, this is an exhibition about place, and exhibits stem from that, making all aspects of the dig site at Snowmass Discovery meaningful and relevant. We want people to walk out after this is my line or my thought, we want people to walk out after they've been in the Discovery Center and think, I'm looking at where this story took place. I don't know if you know this about me, but my first job out of college, I was an editor at Skiing Magazine. For my last 3 years there, I was the travel editor. My job was to make a magazine. I created the ski resort rankings and tell the stories of ski areas around the world. This was a different era of magazine publishing when that was a big magazine. And as you probably know, there is no ski area in the world that can tell a story like this. I mean, the potential for this to be a differentiator for Snowmass is really remarkable. So this is page 11. This is what they were hoping that visitors will take away from this. And the main things are that the dig, amazing things were found here. And there are all sorts of ways that they'll see that. They want to really convey to people in geological time how recent some of the stuff that was found. So this on the right there, you see if the entire Earth's history were 24 hours, the last ice age, which is the period we're talking about for this dig, was less than 1 second ago. This is another great, under the picture there, the stat that they have during the dig, a bone was found every 1.8 minutes. There's an exhibit, I'll show you, that piece of the exhibit that speaks to that specifically. Okay, sorry, this is a little didn't squeeze down. This is one of the exhibit ideas, and this could be one that is at the entryway, which is basically a dial that would allow someone to turn it through the full 68 days of the dig, so 1 through 68, and then everything that was discovered will be projected onto the floor around them. So really dynamic. Anyone who's in the vicinity would see it, and it conveys this idea of just how much was discovered there. So it might be, and again, all of this stuff is sort of ideas that they've given us that could populate this space. Not everyone would get the green light, but this is just one example. 22,000 fossils found in 68 days. So by the time that you get to the 68 on the dial, you've got 22,000 fossils kind of circulating around you, projected onto the floor. This is what another piece might look like, which is this could be something that would be fairly early in the exhibit cycle as you move through the space, which is a kind of a recreation of the dig site itself, which on the wall. So you've got fossils underground. The yellow in the top there is the tread from a tractor. The blue is the portaloo that was ultimately the name for one of the mastodon discoveries, the fossils. And again, interactive video screens that are kind of bringing it all to life, but you can see sort of recreates what was found, and just brings it to life. And then their idea is that there would be a full mastodon replica that kind of comes to life out of the dig site, and then some of those video screens would actually show you what that creature looked like. Here's a climate piece. This would be a kind of topographical display of the whole of the area of Snowmass that you would then move rings over that would show you different eras of time. So you could go back 100,000 years, you could go back 120,000 years, you could go back 50,000 years to indicate just how much this place has changed over time. And again, really trying to tie it to this place so that people walk out of the exhibit and they look around and think, wow, I was just looking at the deep history of this place that I'm now standing in real time. And that's, unless you want to ask questions about some of this. Questions? No? I want to just kind of give you a sense of timeline and what we're planning on doing in the sort of more near term, which would be opening of the collective building by Thanksgiving now of this year. And that is, we've realized that to bring something like this to life, it's really unrealistic to do it on a super tight timeline. So we're thinking a realistic opening for this would be 2021, so either the summer or start of ski season 2021, which gives us 2.5, almost 3 years. And in the space that will open downstairs by next ski season, we're looking to have a placeholder of sorts, just not a placeholder, just a couple of walls that would say, coming in 2021, the new Snowmass Discovery Center. The Discovery Center space on the mall would continue to operate as it is largely, but maybe refreshed with some new displays and some programmatic elements. We might make use of it to pitch some of this to potential donors. And then I want to finish by saying how great the East-West guys have been through this whole process. They've been super patient in this. When they sat through this presentation, which again was a 40-pager that took 2 hours with the consultants, they were really encouraging and enthusiastic, and made it clear that they want what's best for Snowmass in the long term, and they have a directive to get something open in that space for next year that's going to be engaging and useful for the town. But they've been super helpful to me in helping me coordinate with the consultants and helping me ask the right questions. And Charlie's here, so Charlie, thank you for that. He's been really a great partner, as has Andy and the rest of the East West crew in this. And I'll answer questions if you have them to the best of my ability. Or
Tom, go ahead.
Michael, thank you very much. Nice presentation. Looking forward to everything. The question I have is, like, I understand we're not going to have some of the real bones up here. It's the difficulty of the building itself and how it's set up in there. But I guess some of the bones that are all in the Denver Museum, they're still not on display. What's the status of?
So we will have some of the bones for sure, and so on this piece, some of what's in that wall, some of it could be replicas, and I didn't throw this slide in, but one of the things that Carolyn Harris, one of the consultants, a line that she uses over and over again, which I love, is she says a big part of this needs to be displaying the bones in a jewel-like fashion. So one of their proposals, and there are, 12 more of these exhibit ideas in this bigger document, and I just pulled 3 out to give you a sense of what some of them might look like. I wish I'd kept the one in that is, really about.
That's okay. That's all right. But I think my biggest question was, and I've been to the museum several times in the last 12 months down in Denver, and I still ask the question when I go there, where's the Snowmass bones?
Yeah.
And they're not on display.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the holdup?
Do
Do
that's
you have any idea?
really a question for Ian Miller
Okay.
at DMNS, and that's not something that the Discovery Center or board really has a lot of control over. I mean, what they have
No,
told us
I understand that totally. Yeah.
is that that stuff is available to us, that they are available to us. Ian has been, he's on the Discovery board, has been a big help in this. But that would be a big piece of this, is getting those bones in front of people. Again, I think, the shorthand for this, the Discovery Center has become the bones, and maybe not the most friendly sense and kind of a dismissive sense, but those bones are an incredible asset to us. We've talked a lot with both the consultants, and East West has helped us through Semple Brown talk to consultants about what kind of space we'd need to create so that those bones could be consistently loaned to us. There are temperature requirements, humidification requirements, and really what we've realized is because at this altitude it's hard to meet the humidity standard that the bones would need. So that's going to have to be dealt with in the cases themselves, but it can be done. But and that's where you're going to see a real stickiness in terms of what makes it worth coming back year over year, is that we would have a consistently new mix of bones and fossils on display.
The only thing I would add to that is the mastodon that's shown here is actually the mastodon that's being constructed right now. It's a donation from the Denver Museum to water and sanitation. We've talked about where's it gonna land, where's it gonna live. Live's weird, but where's it gonna be? That's one of the tools that we know we're gonna have soon, and they wanted to incorporate it this way. And so we think this might be one of the solutions to utilize
So,
it.
if anybody's been to the museum lately in the last 12 months, they have a section of the mastodons, but they don't necessarily address snow. It's just they have a little bit of an Ice Age discovery section in the lower floor of the museum, but there are none of the bones from Snowmass are not necessarily on display, but they barely even mention Snowmass. So if it's such a large discovery,
Yeah.
I'd like to see how, not us, but if there's some way to promote getting the Denver Museum to move a little bit more forward with the discovery itself. By the way, this happened in Snowmass, this major discovery, and they don't mention that.
Yeah, they've got the big replica outside.
Right.
But it's a great point and question, and I think it would ultimately really help Discovery Center.
think so.
You know, when
I agree.
people are seeing it in Denver and realizing that, you know, at some
Well, a
point.
lot of the schools that will go to the museum or something will see these exhibits, and if they found out that, by the way, a lot of these were found in Snowmass Village, maybe some of these schools will be visiting Snowmass Village Discovery Center. I'd like to see that.
It's a great
Well,
point.
if nothing else, people in Denver do come to Snowmass, and it
Correct.
gives them something
Right.
to look for when they get here.
Right.
And it might improve the flow, the number of people that actually go up to the Discovery Center.
Mike, it looks like you're making great progress.
Thanks.
I think it's looking very, 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 very interesting. And I wish we had the 44-page document in front of us, but we understand the importance of the ongoing work with the document. So,
Yeah, and
Good
it
job.
just, some of it just needs to be cleaned up a
Sure.
bit. You know, there's like one or two typos in there, so before it goes to you and therefore to the full public, I want to make sure it's, you know, it's
it's up
perfect
to
in that
Michael
sense.
Miracle standards, is it?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Well, quite frankly, I think the ideas are excellent. I love that wheel idea. Turn-
And there are, you know, several other really
That is
cool things.
really
They've, you know,
cool.
Yeah,
a
I really like
virtual-
the climate, the table where the
Yeah.
people move if it's a magnifying
Yeah,
glass, whatever it is,
cool.
over the topographical
Yeah.
Yeah.
map. That's a great idea.
And there's a lot more, and I think, you know, some of it's even more wow than what I showed you, and there's
Yeah, more
virtual
sugar
reality
candy.
stuff, so, yeah, there is tremendous potential, and we feel like we've got, you know, everything is aligned. We've got the space, you know, we've got, you know, this piece, which has been really the kind of the missing piece to, you know, what does this have the potential to be, that we're going to really, I think, be able to fundraise around and finally, you know, really accelerate this process.
Michael, can you give us an idea of your organization's timeline from this point to some point?
Yeah. So we're going to start building that out now. So you know, we've kind of got an end point that we're going to start to you know, build back from. We've got a goal of 2021, and that's a big part of what the consultants are going to do for us. So they've completed the first of 4 phases of their work, and phase 2 will be for them to start to want, now that we've given them and continue to give them feedback on this document, you know, what the pacing is going to look like, both for fundraising, which they're going to help us strategize on, and what the build out needs to look like. And there is some of that in this document. There are several TBDs in there, and based on, you know, decisions that still need to be made. Do we want to take the whole space downstairs? Do we want to take half the space? And that basically that timeline is kind of a next piece that they're going to give us.
I might add on that for a second, that if all the money was on, if we had all the money necessary today, we being Discovery, I'm using whatever, but you know, it's still 18 months. They've said it's at least 18 months to construct all these things. And so there's a fundraising timeline, and then a construction timeline. And then as far as the space goes that Michael just touched on, I think that's part of the point that Michael was making is we've been in discussions with Andy and his team. We're all aiming for what's best. We know on day one it's not going to be this, but once the dollars are raised and we know what can happen, that's where the discussion comes back and forth. With the lease the council approved 3 weeks ago or a month ago, it's going to come that the 50% of the basement is dedicated to this, 50% is dedicated to the game room. But assuming if by best case scenario that, you know, all the appropriate money is raised, the best stuff can be built, then East-West gets to say, yeah, we think that's better than what's going in there now, and that's going to be that ongoing discussion, ongoing design issues that we've got to address. So a lot to come, and it's really kind of that initial partnership that's been developed, the communication, the conversation, that I think we've all committed to making sure, as Michael said, to do the right thing for the building and the village.
I know everyone is anxious, but the timeline is still aggressive.
I would say, yeah, but
Yeah. if everybody gets their arms around it, it'll happen. So,
I think that's a good way to,
yeah,
yes.
yeah,
it's a fair way
it's
to
a lot of work to raise money and build designs and do all the detail. It's a lot of work,
Right.
and I applaud your efforts.
Thanks.
So when do you think you might be back to us with Snowmass Discovery's recommendation, or the consultant's recommendation, collectively on what size space, and therefore what estimate of cost to build out all these exhibits?
So I spent an hour on the phone with Carolyn, half of the consulting team, on Thursday, and one thing she told me was that as if, say, we set a fundraising goal of $5 million, and we realize that it's, we might only get 60% of the way there, that doesn't necessarily require that whole pieces fall out from the
Right.
plan, that you can dial back the costs in all sorts of different ways. And one thing that we didn't talk about was that there's a programmatic side to this, which is, we want to bring people in and speakers and things like that. So we could take much of the same amount of space at all sorts of different levels of money, while continuing to include most of what's in the plan. It will just get, the pieces themselves will change. How often new bones go into the jewel-like display of bones would change. So there are all sorts of ways to kind of dial the cost back without impacting how much space. But to answer your specific question of how soon I think we'd come back, and I apologize that this is going to be an unsatisfying answer, but we need to kind of get our fundraising roadmap in place, and that will be a point on the timeline, which is, okay, if you are only at X number of dollars by date X, what do you do? And so I don't have that timeline yet.
Well, I mean, you raised a very good point, that there are two ways to look at what could be done. One is to determine what the space is and work to drive the exhibits or whatever into that space and use the fundraising that is available for the space that is optimum. And the other would be to just look at the fundraising and build the exhibits to fit the amount of dollars that you raise. But I think what I'm hearing you say is that at least your preference would be to work towards the best space, and then, if necessary, dial back some of the exhibits or the approach in order to fit with the fundraising dollars.
Yes.
Is that,
Yes, I'd say that's
accurate?
yes. We're shooting for the best experience possible. The consultants, again, have really blown some wind in our sails, and we feel like this is an extraordinary opportunity for Snowmass. And there's a reason we were all so over the moon about this back when the discovery happened, and we're so enthused about the potential for this, and we're willing to, the whole building at one point was going to be the Discovery Center, and it's not right now for reasons we don't need to rehash right now, but we're feeling really optimistic again.
So I understand your point again about the fundraising being a point on the timeline. But if the space is going to be the driver, the optimum space will be the driver, when do you think you will have made a decision about what the optimal space is?
A year and a half. I mean, I'll answer for you. I mean, we have two tracks we're going down right now. We've got, I'll call it the November 1st track, which is a year from now, essentially, that we know that East-West has set the goal that we want to have something up and going by next ski season.
Right.
Maybe sooner.
Yeah.
And so we're going to have a design for that. It will likely not include much of this, a placeholder, a toe hold, whatever you want to call it, for something. But it'll be largely something else going forward, so it has a complete look to it. And that's buying time for Discovery to go out and do the fundraising, do the design, get the exhibits up and going correctly.
Well, okay. You said before, Clint, that construction is gonna take 18 months.
That's the
Right.
round number they've told us.
Well, if you're at November of 2019, and you take 18 months, you're already beyond the November 20 presumed opening.
That was 21, I think. we said.
21.
21.
21.
I thought I heard 2021
No.
ski season.
No, 2021.
2021.
Okay, thank you.
So, I mean, roughly speaking, a year and change for fundraising, roughly speaking, 18 months for kind of design, construction, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And to do the fundraising in 1 year is very aggressive.
Yeah, we know it's aggressive,
Yeah,
and
we
that's
know
why
it's
we're, and
aggressive,
again,
and-
we're just trying to say what's realistic, and if we got on a hot streak, you know, we
Absolutely.
might come back, and if we get on a cold streak, we might come back. But those are the lines that we're working through now.
Okay.
And I think from the town perspective, what we're trying to do is make sure that we're keeping a good product at the end and as much flexibility as possible. And that's why we're working with Discovery as a nonprofit and with East West, and trying to find that sweet spot between delivering something real in a year, which is for the next ski season, and making sure our options stay open for something really phenomenal like this.
I'm going to stop there and ask, is there any other questions? If not, could I have some thumbs up? Like where we're going?
Well, I don't necessarily have a question, but I just do want to say I think this is a really important project, Michael. I'm glad you're putting the time and energy behind it, because I think it's really important for our village. But I think if I'm hearing you right, Clint, essentially what we're going for is moving the Discovery Center from the mall to the base village by Thanksgiving next year.
No.
You know, and Michael's, I don't know that we're committing to that, because
That's not what I heard.
Thanksgiving of next year, it'll probably, let me say this clearly. It might be funky to have a bunch of tusks and what do we have on the mall next to a really fancy brand new game room. And if that design doesn't work, I don't know that we'll do that. We're working through those design issues right now.
Okay.
And so we don't have a good answer for it. Our commitment is to make sure the product at the end is worthy. And I can't commit to that'd be worthy right now.
And as Michael said earlier, the purpose of tonight was to give us an update and give us a conceptual overview. So I know we have many, many questions.
We got a lot of work to do. I just
Got
wanted
a
to
lot
make
of
sure you
work,
guys
and
knew
quite
that we're
frankly,
getting some stuff going
I think
forward.
council's very pleased with where you are right now, and I like the ideas. Is everybody? Yeah, it's gonna take a little longer.
So
than we
the
wanted.
mastodon that's being constructed or has been constructed will fit in the space that we have?
We've asked that specific question, and there's not a specific answer, because I bet you there's been 12 people that have asked it 15 different ways, and what it depends on is how it's reconstructed.
It's
If
getting
you- if-
reconstructed.
If we're able to bend the legs or whatever, or do it in a swamp, the answer is yes. They think, Carolyn, of their initial reaction is something like this, yes. If you were to build it in full stride and whatever, probably not. And so, we're all aware of the constraints of the building, of the ceiling heights and what the thing could be, so we're aiming for it, is all I've got. We know that's gonna be a constraint.
Okay. Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Michael.
Michael, very good, thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Okay, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Oh, I'll have to pause and see if there's any public comment. And I don't see anyone in the public that wants to come forward for a public comment. So consent agenda, do I have a motion for approval? And that includes Lawson Wills as our municipal judge.
Stuff is so boring compared to that.
Well,
Oh,
is there
come on.
anything anyone wants to bring up?
You got some stories you can tell.
Yeah, come on up. I know that some people might have a few questions for you, Judge Wills. But on draft agendas, I will only be at an hour of the meeting on the 22nd.
I thought you were retired.
Well, I'm going to a conference in Palo Alto to learn more about the impact of autonomous vehicles on bus transportation systems.
Sweet.
Oh.
I'll come back with a lot of
Sounds like
information.
fun.
Oh, boy.
Boy,
Hey, Marky, I have a quick question
Yeah.
on consent agenda on
Sure.
the January 14th work session, and this is from results of a email sent to all of
Yes.
us about not being televised. Is there a reason we're not televised for that work session?
We usually don't. It's a strategic planning session.
Okay.
But in the past, we've,
No, we
No,
haven't.
no,
Not
not
the other
goals,
ones.
no?
No.
Goal
it's
setting?
Work, no.
No.
Not
Well,
a, not
yes,
a,
goal settings have been televised, but not the initial retreat when
Yes.
you. And then when you do follow-up, that's usually part of a regular meeting or a work session.
Yeah.
But the retreats have not typically been televised.
okay.
Whatever John Dresser said.
And I'm going to be out on February 11th, so we're not going to have a
Ooh,
quorum on that date.
Ooh.
so the work session on the 11th, we won't be able to hold.
I just lowered my absence.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I just, I guess I wanted to bring this up because we had P-TRAB scheduled on the 11th
Uh-huh.
as a meeting, but, and again, I'm not sure this probably fits in with town goals as well, but I would like to have a joint meeting with every board and commission for the purpose of making sure that our goals and the boards and commissions' goals are in alignment as we go into 2019. So again, I don't know if that belongs here or can be discussed next Monday rather. But that is something that I've been thinking about. I think it would be very useful.
The challenge is that session is on the 14th. I don't think we can get everybody scheduled before then.
Well, I think Bob's talking about making sure there's a philosophical agreement
Yeah. And
Yeah.
not
amongst
to
all the
do it-
council members.
Right.
Not to
to-
do it on the 14th
But
necessarily,
just a
but
future meeting.
in
To
future
schedule
meetings.
those kind of meetings,
And also, I
those
mean,
joint meetings.
and as part of that, the staff support for each of the boards and commissions should be aware and maybe talking to the boards and commissions about what their goals are for the year. So, that it's both sides have an opportunity to be thinking about that.
Sure.
Before we sit down together.
I like that.
So that's a topic for your retreat.
Yeah.
Okay, topic for the retreat. Thank you.
That's not televised.
Any other changes on the draft agendas?
I had said that I was going to be out the 11th. I'm going to find out within the next couple of days if I'm definitely going to be gone. But I don't know if that'll change the
Oh, then we could
situation
have
or
it,
not. But I just don't know right at this moment.
Okay.
But I should know in the next couple of
Okay.
days.
For now, if there's not a quorum, we'll cancel the meeting, and if there is a quorum, we'll keep it going. Is that
Yep.
kind of the direction?
Okay, so that's for draft agendas. And let's go back to resolution. I'm just going to ask, do I have a motion for resolution number 1, series of 2018, resolution designating the location of the official notice boards for the town of Snowmass Village?
So moved.
Do I have
I'll
second? Okay, you have a motion and a second. The only thing I had comment was, isn't the liquor licensing, it's not a board any longer, and it's in the preamble of the resolution?
You're correct.
On line 14.
Okay, if we could just delete that. So all in support, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, now moving on to resolution number 2, the appointment of Judge Wills as our municipal judge. And the setting of term would be 2 years in compensation. You got a new motorhome. I don't know how you'd afford it on this
It's my
salary.
day job. It's not this one.
I did have a question for you, though. the number of cases appear to have gone up. That, what are we seeing in terms of cases? Is it?
You know, the kinds of cases we
Yeah,
see?
yeah.
We see a few bar fights, we see some traffic, some speeding, we see some barking dogs and some dogs at large, that kind of thing. The types of cases really haven't changed over time.
Okay.
And really the volume, I wouldn't say that we're seeing more cases. Yeah, we did last year have a few more, but it's really a fairly minimal amount. It's certainly not overwhelming us.
It's not overwhelming. I
No,
just
on a typical day, I'll come in and we'll have anywhere from 6 to 10 to 12 cases at the most, really. So it's very manageable for us.
And understand that a lot of the traffic offenses are offered penalty assessments, so you can pay it and not show in court. The traffic cases that come here are the people that ignore it, or they've done a more serious offense and they're summoned to court. They are not offered a penalty assessment, so cases filed, the ones that make it into this room, there's probably at least an equal number that are paid before they ever have to come to
Okay.
court.
Thank you.
That was a plug for the Snowmass Village PD.
Any questions? Do I have a motion for resolution number 2?
Make a motion to approve resolution number 2, series 2019.
Second?
Second.
Any further questions? All in support, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Aye.
Thank you.
Take advantage of that ski pass.
You know I do. I don't ski like Madsen, but I can finally find my way down. This is year 11, I think, for me, 11 and 12.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
So I appreciate I really do appreciate it. It's a lot of fun, and I appreciate being involved in the community a bit. So thank you.
You do a great job.
Thank you, Lawson.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, next is resolution number 3.
See you Tuesday.
Oh, that's right.
John, you got a ticket or something?
No. No. You know, the cops here can't catch me.
They know where you
Those are famous last words, I guarantee
Those
you.
are famous.
That's right.
I meant on skis.
Famous last words.
Yeah. Resolution number 3, this is a series of 2019. This is appointing members to the boards of appeals, citizen grants review, EAB. FAB is on hold, marketing's on hold until we do our special interviews this week. Group
Yep.
sales and events.
FAB.
special-
FAB is not.
FAB 's
Oh, FAB's here tonight.
Yeah, it's Marketing and Planning Commissioner on hold.
Okay, yeah. And then we have group sales and special events. Oh, that's the same thing. Park Open Space Trails and Recreation Board Planning Commission is on hold until we have our interviews, and PTRAB and SOB. Okay. So, Rhonda.
Okay, well, on the agenda summary, you can see that I've denoted encumbrance, and I've told how many vacancies and how many applications we've received. So at this time right now, we do have new people, which applications have been submitted. So as you can see, like Environmental Advisory Board, Linda's application is in the packet, but she's not an incumbent. But, you know, you can choose to just appoint everyone, or we also have a few boards open. I still have one person for Citizen Grant Review Board, 3 people for the Part-Time Residents Advisory Board, and we have 1 person for the Boards of Appeals. So I still have 3 boards that need,
How do we go about?
I'll have to re-advertise.
So what, a question on the absentee attendance, with the attendance record that you sent out. What are our requirements? For instance, I'm looking at the environmental board, and there's one particular person who has made 1 meeting in 12 months.
What does the statute say? I don't think in the advisory boards, there's not
No
any,
requirement?
not for our advisory boards. But John can look it up real quick.
I don't have the statutes.
I can tell you.
I don't think
It's-
there is.
The municipal
Yeah,
code?
Uh-huh.
I printed them out.
Yes, you want to? Travis might have some
I was just kind of curious, I mean, why would anybody want to be on the board, advisory board or whatever board it is, and
Right.
not show up for any of the meetings?
Does it happen to be a person that's reapplying?
I don't think so.
Her work has been requiring her to travel a lot more than she thought, so she hasn't been able to participate as much as she would like to, and she has said she would step down if someone would like to take her seat, and as of yet, we have not had an applicant. We haven't had more people wanting to join the board than there are seats available, so. What's that?
Is that a specialized seat?
I'm not sure.
How long, since I'm targeting the Environmental Advisory Board, how long are their meetings?
Usually an hour and a half.
Okay, and once a month?
Correct.
Okay, other questions?
I had a question.
Go ahead.
For Citizens Grant Review Board, Judy Clausen, however you say it, but she worked for Anderson Ranch or works for Anderson Ranch?
She worked.
Okay, just because that would be weird if she was, because they usually apply
These
for
are-
a grant.
She has a small consulting practice.
Okay.
When we have our Citizen Grant Review Board meetings, if they recuse themselves from that, like, if there was someone there from Anderson Ranch, they will not vote on what that money is. The rest of the board will put down their suggestion. Because we used to have someone on the board that was with Camp Smashbox, and they weren't allowed to,
Got it. Okay.
So it looks like we have some work to do for the Part-Time Residents Advisory Board, but I do believe the Boards of Appeals and Examiners and the Citizen Grant Review Board, I can get another person for very easily.
Okay, okay.
And
And
Arts
the other thing-
Advisory is still missing one, right?
The Arts Advisory Board can have up to, it doesn't have to have that many. And the other thing is, if you've got a lot of applicants that will, if someone is not chosen for one of those other boards, I'd like to encourage them to apply for these. Obviously, they won't fit into the Part-Time Residents Advisory Board, but they could, the other two boards. So I know that there's, going to be a few people that may not be chosen for one of the other boards that we can encourage to come to these two.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a resolution. Number 3, do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Any further discussion? All in support, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
And did you get all the information that you need for your next coming up meetings?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. And the times on Wednesday is now at 12:30?
11:45.
11:45?
11:45 to
Until,
To 4?
12:45.
Okay. And then on Thursday, it's 1 to 4?
1:45.
1:45.
Oh, okay.
Wait, say that again?
Yeah, I got different
1:45?
times.
Yeah, well,
1:45.
It's 1:45 to 4?
did you get that?
No, I don't know what that is.
You should,
It's
you
a- it's a-
should have a copy, maybe in your mailbox.
So
I
it's
didn't have anything on the table.
It's the interview times, schedule.
I don't,
I didn't get that.
I asked Barb to print them up.
I think
For
they're
you.
laying all right beside the copier, because there was
Oh.
only 2 people that wanted them, so she left them lay right beside the end of the machine by your boxes. Let me go check real quick.
okay.
We can have
Yeah,
it
it's
for the
got
next
all-
10 minutes.
So wait, can
all
you
the
just say the
stuff.
times one more time?
So 11:45 on Wednesday.
11:45 and 1:45 on Thursday.
Okay.
And those are held in this room.
Okay.
1:45 Thursday. Thursday.
Okay, now, let's move on into town council reports.
I've got a question about the interviews. In this room, do they have to be held in this room?
No.
Because I guess I have, my question is, having,
You need it closer to the mic.
okay, my question being, having people who are not being interviewed?
No, we would keep those in the lobby. We will not have everybody all together.
Okay,
You'll just get one person at a time.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Any reports? Any meetings anybody gone to? No?
Not in a while.
We've
Did
been
you all have a
off
good
for
New Year's?
The holidays.
You and I, we should get together
Yes.
with Clint on that,
On the retreat? we
on the
will.
retreat.
Yeah,
The
I've got my notes
preparedness
out.
that meeting.
Yes, I got my notes
So-
out today.
Maybe we can talk tomorrow or something and find some time. Okay.
And you saw the article about the Public Health Department and the food
Yes.
inspection, okay?
Mhm. Thank you for clarifying that.
It's been a whirlwind over the last few months on this issue. So, it's all good. Okay, do I have a motion for adjournment?
I'll motion to adjourn.
Well, then I will second that.
You have a second over here, Tom. And I think there's a football game on sometime tonight.
Yes, I think there's,
There's
Pretty
a football
soon.
game?
Mr. Dresser might understand what that's.
Place your bets.
No,
With that,
here.
all in support, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. An hour and 10 minutes.
That's
What, you
The
got
The
anything,
shortest
John,
meeting
you
we've
got
had in
anything?
a long time.